Realignment is always full of surprises. Oregon and Washington is no different. How could that potentially affect the ACC? As we have these conversations still rolling and TV deals are coming undone, will other teams find new homes? We'll talk about all of that on today's show, as well as the best and worst of your YouTube comments.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Keenis Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. Each and every day, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you download, subscribe to the pod, and hit up our YouTube channel, where your subscription can get us to 2,000 plus subscribers, and we always appreciate that. On today's episode, we're talking through Big Ten invites. We're talking through some best and worst comments of YouTube, and we're getting you ready for what will be ACC football coverage this season. Kenton, how are you feeling?
I feel great. I'm ready to get into these comments because they're going to call us everything but good Christians on this show. And so, I'm ready to talk some Oregon, Washington, and what makes sense, what's going on there. And I'm also ready to talk these comments.
1,000%. So let's kick things off. Oregon and Washington over this past week were invited to the Big Ten, formal invitation sent by the conference. And it seems as if the Pac-12 is now the Pac-4. Arizona's having conversations with the Big 12. You already know USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. It just feels like everybody's up out of here and trying to find new happy homes. Stanford's over here scratching their head like, where's the gang? Arizona State's like, what are we going to do, of the like. And maybe ACC needs to put in some calls or haven't been doing so. And maybe there are calls. Jimmy P tends to do things and surprise us. I thought there would be more announcements at ACC kickoff, but here we are. But Oregon and Washington, two pretty big schools, prominent schools, dominant programs, good, viewership and all the things, are now headed to yet another opportunity to be at the Big Ten, which, they're making themselves the Megatron of conferences in the P5.
First of all, Jimmy P is crazy. Jimmy P is flatly insane. That's an insane thing to call our commissioner, Jim Phillips. But I will say this. Oh, Jimmy P better get active. He better get active, And I know that the grant of rights is holding teams. By the way, we'll get into this a little later, but all of these teams are leaving the Pac-12 all at one time. Why? What happened? What triggered? Oh, yeah, their TV deal is up. You see what happens when your TV deal is up? You see? But when you wait, you can go where you want. Never mind. We're not going to do that right now. But anyway, Oregon and Washington getting Big Ten invites. We're moving more and more towards a few super conferences and whatnot. And, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Washington, for all the success that they have or have not had, they're one of the most viewed teams in the nation. Oregon, same thing. I know everybody likes to think, oh, well, our team's won more than this team, and we can. I've said this about Florida State all along, that whatever you want to say about Florida State winning or losing or who they are, not in terms of W's and L's, it does not matter. Right. There are things outside of that build a brand. 100%. And the reality is their brand is strong enough that, they can still have a brand even when they're not necessarily good. But with that being said, that brand does not outdo whether or not your TV deal is up. So as we're seeing with the 4-pack now, because they can't be the Pac-12 anymore, but as we're seeing with the 4-pack, and Oregon and Washington and UCLA and USC and all these teams, when that deal is up, these teams are going and getting that top dollar wherever they can get it.
It's really interesting because you think about the Pac-12 and what it won't be anymore, and all that comes and transpires from that. It's really disheartening because P5, the Conference of Champions, a well-known conference, and all the things. I'm sure they're looking back and being like, why didn't we sign Texas? And all those different what ifs that could have been. And now you're looking at yourself as being decimated. But I think there's a bigger conversation about college athletics, college football, really. Versus just, we want to undo and just have these super conference components and bring all these people together like over TV deals. And nobody's, saying at what point do we need to just, do away with the NCAA.
And I'll say this. COVID impacted the Pac-12 like no other, because that was more than any other conference. They were like, hey, we got to cancel the season. Let's just cancel it. Let's just rock out like that. And that really, it set a bad temperament and vibe for everybody else that is like, wait a minute, what do you mean our member universities don't want to do this? Which then ended up being a reflection of the conference at large. And it was like, this is not a call that the conference office by themselves are unilaterally making.
Yeah.
These are teams that as a whole are deciding, hey, we should probably sit this one out. We should probably not do this, which is unfair to the Pac-12, but it is what it is because, like I always say, people say, what's going on with these other conferences? The Big Ten is the only one that I can't explain. That and here's what I mean by that. The Big Ten's passion and love in the Midwest for football, I can't explain it. I have no clue how to encapsulate why it is that way. We just are that way in Big Ten country. SEC and ACC country, however, it makes a lot of sense because most of these states have no professional team. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality. A lot of these states, it is literally, who's Mississippi's professional team? Who's Alabama's professional teams? Mm-hmm. Who's, the boat brawlers are not professionals. That is just something that happened, just popped off. Arkansas, who's their professional team? And I say that to say that some of these conferences, that specifically the SEC, you say it means more. Yeah, it does, because you got nothing else going on, buddy. That's you've got to be right there. And so Oregon and Washington getting Big Ten invites, again, it makes sense. Those are two of the biggest brands in football. If we look at football viewership last year, both of those teams land inside, I want to say, the top 20 or so. Oregon at number 12, Washington ending up landing at number, I want to say like 30 or something, 34. So Oregon 12, Washington 34. Those are two of the biggest, most watched teams in the nation. Regardless of how you feel about them, regardless of what success they had, a lot like Florida State, doesn't matter whether or not you win championships every year, whether you're mediocre. People want to watch them.
And if you think about Pac-12 and you were mentioning about COVID and the states that were more adamant about shutting down and not having things that were of the belief that like this is very real, it's very serious, we had to take it serious and weren't doing anything because of it, very much a reflection of how the athletic programs, departments rolled out versus, people on our side down here in the deep where we just was like, it is what it is. Is it even real? Like, let's just keep this thing rocking and rolling. If you get up out of here.
People are dying. We're going to keep playing ball. Everything will be all right.
Ridiculousness. And so now you're put in a situation where, okay, again, as you're looking at the ACC, what panic mode should we feel if FSU was to actually leave? I personally don't feel much panic because I don't see any other team really sticking their neck out like that.
So let me say this. I don't see Florida State leaving in the next year, 2, 3, 4. I don't see that happening. But even if they were to leave, I don't think the ACC at large should be worried because you're asking yourself, and this is the serious thing, because everybody keeps telling me that nothing matters. And I'm asking of the fans, not just the Florida State fans, of all the fans of the ACC, well, hell, what does matter? I was told that the viewership didn't matter because the ACC had a bad TV deal. Okay, sure. We'll say that the viewership doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. The merchandising. The ACC is lagging behind in that capacity as well, behind a lot of these schools in the Big Ten and the SEC. What does matter in terms of how big your brand is, in terms of how marketable your brand is? Because for every team that goes in, guess what happens to the pot? It gets cut up more, right? Mm-hmm. If you've ever seen, I want to say it was the second Batman movie with Christian Bale in it. Was it The Dark Knight or was it The Dark Knight Rises, the one with the Joker? And everybody's saying, okay, The Dark Knight. And everybody's saying, hey, he told me the boss said that to do this at the end. And then they were, picking off the people who were in front of them in the plan. And they kept talking about, because the pie's getting bigger and bigger for me and whoever. Well, guess what? You're doing the opposite. You're adding people in. So if your team wants to be added into this conference, can you add in enough ducats to make it make sense? And by the way, even if you pay the $300 million, you're not going free and clear. So these conferences have to add you in knowing your home game revenue still belongs to the ACC. and knowing that your home game television rights still belong to the ACC. So maybe not the home game revenue, I apologize, but I know the home game television rights belong to the ACC. So if there's revenue outside of that, I'm pretty sure the university can keep that, but anything else, and the conference can keep that, but anything else goes to the ACC as far as the TV deal.
If Johnny had 5 apples. No,
if he had 5. If he had 5, okay? I'm asking the fan because they telling me Johnny had 5 apples, he lost 2, and he going to have 10. I don't know. Johnny is sitting here appleless.
Johnny is sitting here struggling. All right, guys, let's pay some bills. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Kenton Gibbs here helping us roll through news around the Big Ten. Of course, Oregon and Washington, the invites and all that. But it really is spicy around here in ACC country. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few comments throughout the week in regards to our episode from Bubba Cunningham, not pleased with FSU and jumping out the frame with Rick McCullough and all of that, right? Yeah. So, of my best and worst comments of YouTube, right? Here we go.
Let's get into it.
Of my favorites, this man decided he was going to write us a 4-page. I mean, when I tell you the screen, if you go to that episode and you look through the comment, it is a novel. It's a novel. And you know how when people get on Twitter and they write those 4-page apologies, and people are like, I ain't gonna hold you, bro. I'm not reading all that. Mm-hmm. I'm here to say, I ain't gonna hold you, bro. I'm not reading all that. I know you thought you were being informative and you were helping the group and like you were trying to give us a FSU one-on-one lesson. I'm gonna call Drake next time I need some help. You know what I'm talking about? Like I'm gonna call my guys locked on Seminoles if I need some help. I'm not about to sit here and play with you and read all that only for you to just be ugly in the comments. Like that's my biggest thing. We could all go back and forth. We could all have our opinions and do whatever, what have you. But you're not about to sit here and try to undermine, make me feel less than or not wise or not intelligent because I choose not to engage in foolishness. You feel me? And you need, I understand your goal because you are diehard fans and you guys want to make sure we know that FSU is going to leave when they feel like it. And the meeting wasn't held to send a message to Bubba Cunningham or the rest of the ACC. It was for FSU fans who wanting to know their administration is being proactive. Proactive for what? Everybody knows there's always moving parts in conversations. Like we get that. We are not slow. You know that, right?
And also, relying on humans to act logically is not something that I do. It's not. It makes sense most of the time. Most of the time, people do things that make sense. But every now and then, you see something where you just go, huh? What happened? Like the Kihei Clark pass at the end of that NCAA tournament game last year. It's like, wait a minute. This is the most experienced point guard, all-time assist leader, and he just has a flub that doesn't make sense. So trust me. While I am 1,000% on the bandwagon of it would not make sense for Florida State to leave because I know that they believe it would trigger a domino effect that would get everybody else to leave. But I mean, again, the numbers just don't necessarily bear that out.
But wait, Keaton, they just, more recent news, everything comes out. They're now in bed or talking with or having conversation with JP Morgan. So they're figuring out their financial things. You know what I'm talking about? So it's more than just talk now. We had a comment that said FSU announced a deal with JP Morgan and 6th Street. So I would assume the barking will stop sooner than later. And I'm like, listen, y'all got what is Dubai money? Now we got Dubai money.
Listen, more power to you. More priority. Again, like I said earlier in the show, and like I'll say again 1,000 times until somebody leaves. What does matter? What does matter? I'm very confused. The money doesn't matter. The grant of rights doesn't matter. The viewership doesn't matter. The branding doesn't matter. The merchandising doesn't matter. Okay, so what matters?
Mm-hmm.
What matters? What matters? I'm confused as to what is important and what's holding teams that don't want to be here. I'm confused. The money's not holding them. The grant of rights ain't holding them. And they're a huge brand. Like I just said, Florida State is behind of all the teams that have gotten deals and whatnot in terms of Oregon and Washington. They're only behind Oregon. So, and like they told me, the viewership doesn't matter because of how poorly the TV deal is working. So, okay, the viewership doesn't even matter. You're a bigger brand than Oregon. Sure, we'll give you that. Clap, clap, bravo. Why are you still here?
Oh, wait, Kenton. No, wait. Listen, this conversation strengthens from our episode why we need to leave the ACC talking about FSU. The disrespect is unreal. I'm a booster. Our facilities are fine and we are building a football-only facility currently. Our peers are making 2 times more a year. This means not only do we have less for football, but for all other sports. We have carried this conference in viewership, played in 6 national titles. Our first losing season was after 41 years, happened only 4 years ago. This is going to happen, so stop crying about it. My first question is, who crying? I could care less. Leave. At this point, I might want Florida State to leave. I don't know.
Listen, I carry the same mentality for this show and this conference that I do in my personal life, okay? Because like we've talked about on this show before, our checks don't get bigger or smaller if the ACC is 10 teams instead of 14.
Come on, please help the people know.
If the ACC is 12 teams instead of 15 or 13 or however, if the ACC gets smaller, I promise you, y'all told us, well, you're part of a network. And you think that network is like, hey, the ACC only gets a show so long as Florida State's involved?
They said we're working with the man, so we're just a super ACC driven show, and it's like, honestly, I took that as a compliment. I took that as a compliment.
No disrespect to him, just add him on LinkedIn because I didn't look at my journalism LinkedIn for some time. You think David Locke is the man in that regard?
Apparently so.
You think that he's pulling the strings?
Do y'all know what Locked On Podcast Network is? I'm confused. Just make sure.
Listen, again, shout out to David. Thank you for the opportunity, brother.
100%.
This man is not this ain't that, and that ain't this. So again, I wish Florida State all the best. If this is inevitable and they're leaving, and that again, do I think Florida State will leave before most of the other teams? Absolutely. Yes, for sure. 100%. 100%. Are they leaving this year or next year? Oh, bless your heart.
My biggest thing is like, okay, you leave, but tell me where you're going. 1, 2.
I would guess the SEC. Cool. Is the easy spot.
But let's all hope and pray that college athletics looks the same in the next 1 to 2 years, because it really boils down to these ESPNs of the world, these Foxes of the world. And like our good friend Richard said, isn't it nice to see an old friend like ESPN sit back and watch the ACC take arrows from other conference members, all while they do backward flips to accommodate the SEC and Big Ten. There have been many calendar years when the ACC was the number 1 content provider to ESPN networks. Now in the hour of need for the ACC, where's our friend for 45 years? And that's fair.
Well, ESPN has said, what have you done for me lately?
ESPN said nothing about what y'all got going on got anything really to do with us.
ESPN is recording and saying the girls are fighting. That's what's going on.
They are part of the Bama boat troop who was holding the cameras being like, get them, sick them. Oh no, what? That's crazy.
They're not going to get involved in this.
Did not put no dirt on the uniform.
No, they're ESPN is like, listen, we got our own stuff to figure out. We just let go about half of the talent on the roster. We're not really too concerned about what's going on with these conferences. But I do agree that if we were talking, again, we're talking about a business, but if we were talking from an interpersonal standpoint, then it would be a look like, yo, ESPN, what's good with you, bro? What's good with you? Like, you come help me. So
if ESPN really want, you know what? Let me not go there. I'm not. I'll be quiet.
No, go on his head. Go on his head. Don't tease it. Don't drag it on out.
I think they would strengthen its network. because you got Longhorn Network, you got SEC Network, you got Big Ten Network. I think they would really work to strengthen that network with hosts, with show coverage, with ideas and content providers. Like, they would figure out a better way to elevate that brand. If that was really a priority, in my opinion, if that was really a priority, they would make.
Well, they have the ACC network folks traveling for the first time to this year. Every game, or not every game, but every week they'll be traveling to a new.
But if you're traveling and not telling me anything, but like you're not elevate. Okay, all right.
Okay. I'm gonna let's get back to these comments.
Right.
Let's get back to these comments again. Okay. I think that it's Florida State fans, boosters, all that can be as mad as they want to be, and any other fans and boosters and whatnot can be as mad as they want to be. But the reality is the reality. Even after you pay the 9-figure exit ticket, you still owe. And the hope out of that is, well, we're going to be the first domino, and then all of a sudden everybody else is going to want to do the numbers.
Yeah.
Crunch the numbers, do the math. If everybody goes, because most of us geographically, in terms of the ACC, most of us are located in SEC country per se. If we were to break it up by SEC, Big 12, Big 10, most of us are geographically located in SEC country. You think the SEC is going to absorb all of you?
Right. Right.
Why do you think that?
Yeah. Why do you think that? The last comment will say, old guys rules. A bellyache all you want. FSU and Clemson have every right to leave. They have carried this conference in football since the 90s and are the only real threat to the SEC or Big Ten. And for all their troubles, are paid half of what Vanderbilt and Northwestern make. ACC botched negotiations in signing a 20-year contract. Can't expect top-tier programs to stay on clearance track. Which I hear you. Yes, so there need to be renegotiation of deals and terms and all the things, and maybe a different model of revenue distribution. Sure. I'm not saying that's not a thing. I will say it does boil down to football. We know the nuts and bolts of that, but there are other players involved. Like, there are other factors.
No, there aren't.
Okay.
No, there aren't. Let's just be honest. Hold on. Let's just be honest.
Okay. Well, I guess men's basketball is crazy, and women's basketball is even crazier. But like, I get which cash cow is king. I'm not that naive.
Exactly. Let's just be honest with ourselves, and let's not play. When we say the phrase "blank is king," we quite literally mean that thing is the king.
Yeah.
And what did kings do in monarchy? They made unilateral decisions by themselves. That's just what it was. That's just what it is. And that's what's happening right now with football. Football is driving this and making unilateral decisions by themselves. And so, like I said, I really and truly, we've already discussed the player health and safety and the non-revenue sports and this basketball team will have to travel to this part of the country and then come back in the middle of it. Sure, we've got through all that.
Yeah.
But now, if we're talking about the nitty-gritty of this thing, we're talking about the details of, hey, more power to you. If y'all have the 9-figure payout because you think in the long run, or because in the long run it figures out to be worth it, go for it. However, I think that you're a few years away from that for the same reason that we look at USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Texas, Oklahoma, and the reason they didn't leave a decade before their TV deal was up.
Yeah.
Like, this is not, I don't know why everybody's acting like this is such a novel and crazy idea. Look around at the realignment. Look who left early. Look what the result was.
So do you think that ultimately some of these schools are just riling people up because they want people to get excited around the fact that there could be movement? But we all know, like with anything, of course there's conversations. Of course you're getting excitement. Of course there's things rolling out and conversations to be had and da 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 da. We've been talking about Notre Dame potentially joining this conference for how many years now? Yeah, only for it to ultimately be like, yeah, actually they're not going anywhere.
No. I mean, the reality, like I said, the reality is simple. We can play around. We can beat around the bush. We can talk all that we want to talk. If, again, y'all turned into Lauryn Hill on me. For those of you who don't know, she made the song Nothing Even Matters, okay? Because in the song, she detailed all the things that didn't matter when she with her man. Well, guess what? That's what some of these fans sound like. Nothing matters. Nothing matters, and we can leave unilaterally when we want to. Good. Do it. I promise you, we will not, as a matter of fact, how about this? since it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
When Florida State decides to leave, we will have an entire episode memorializing your time in the ACC.
You want to do that one by yourself, big dog.
We're going to play End of the Road for you. For those of you who don't know, look up Boys to Men, End of the Road.
Yeah.
We will talk about your highlights. And you know what? We ain't even going to bring in the lowlights. We're just going to talk about your highs. We'll talk about We'll talk about the Jameis years. We'll talk about the Ward years. We'll talk about the national champions. We'll talk about all the good things, all the glaring things. Because we don't want to be bitter belly achers. We want to appreciate you for carrying us lowly, low down, raggedy, 2-bit, good for nothing, just leeching and mooching off of y'all success teams that are left. We'll be here. Okay. Yeah. And we'll do that for you. Friend of my heart. I'm a man of my word. So I promise you, when that day comes, since y'all says when, not if, when that day comes, we'll be here.
And I know they're gonna be right there in them comments, making sure that they talk about you. But I just really want to know, when in fact are we actually going to start talking about football again? The X's and O's. I want to talk about Jordan Travis. Damn it, I know it's crazy. I want to talk about Johnny Wilson. I want to talk about Cade Klubnik. I want to talk about Drake May. Like, I'm ready to talk about the X's and O's.
Yeah, well, I'm always ready to talk shop. I'm always ready to talk shop when it comes to
apparently we don't know that either, so it's whatever.
Well, again, everybody knows everything better than the people who actually do it, so that's all right with me.
Yeah.
But I will say this: during my time at ACC Media Days, multiple of the defensive linemen who were there did want to stop and talk ball with me for some reason, even though I don't know the ball. But shout out to Ashton Gelati and Sylvain from Georgia Tech and all that. Shout out to those guys. Neither here nor there. Long story short, the fact of the matter remains very simple. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm ready to talk ball. You ready to talk ball? Let's tell these people how we going to talk ball during the season, because we can't talk realignment throughout the whole season. We can't do it. So let's get into how we going to talk ball.
Last year we definitely had the good look, bad look Mondays. What things we thought went great, what things we thought went bad on the Monday recap episodes. We had some Tuesday, recaps, just putting things to bed and reading comments from you guys on Wednesday and ranking power rankings. And then on Thursday, we were getting ready for what was the week ahead. And Friday, we were getting your bets ready and doing all that fun stuff. And we know that this season may look a little different as we're talking about college football playoffs. We're talking about certain teams that have a really good stake at being really good this year. So I think with no divisions, we should play this a little differently.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should definitely attack this from a different angle. But trust me, there are still plenty of great angles to talk about ACC football.
1,000%. And again, we have power rankings this time that aren't just based on division. So we don't have to have an Atlantic division. We don't have to have a coastal division ranking. We don't have to recap based on only division games. Like, we get an opportunity to just talk about the good and the bad and all that in between and those that are getting left behind. So as you get ready for ACC football with us, we promise to give you guys what will be a pretty exciting rollout plan about our coverage this season.
Well, if we're talking about getting left behind, aren't all of us getting left? Never mind, we're not going to go there right now. But where we are going.
Where are we going? Where are we going to go? Okay, let's just, for kicks and gigs, 1 minute left. Where are we going? If we all had to disseminate, where are we going?
I mean, here's the thing. Most of these teams will not have a home. And that's the part that is why I'm like, this thing is not going to tear apart the way you think it is. Because with all due respect, and this is not to knock any of these teams, a lot of these teams, the viewership, the branding, the merchandise, all that, even though, hey, listen, Florida State is special and they're different. They're special and they're different, so nothing matters with them. But the rest of you have to live in reality, have to be tethered to the ground. And with that being said, there's a lot of things that matters for you all. With all due respect, if your viewership is not scratching 1 million views per game, what conference is going to invite you in and take a cut of their pie?
And my other question is, like, I need to do homework on this in terms of home games or different sort of deals that are already in place based on, where you sit in a certain conference or even with playing, other conferences or other opponents that, you have, let's say North Carolina playing Missouri, things like that. Like, what does that sort of materialize if you do have to go to a new conference? I'll do that investigation and come back to the group.
Absolutely. We need to do our homework because apparently we did no homework going in. You know,
listen, we don't do nothing. Apparently we don't do nothing. But that's fine because y'all come back and y'all tune in. I bet you if FSU were to leave tomorrow, every hater up in them comments is gonna be front and center.
Again, well, they should be front and center because I have promised them. I have promised them their goodbye show.
That's true.
And how do I?
No. My headphones. No, please.
To what we have.
Oh my gosh.
How do I say goodbye?
Here we go. We're gonna find out more of that. But as we get ready for the season, hopefully we get to X's and O's soon enough, and maybe we'll just talk about other sports, what they have to deal with when the whole realignment talk comes about. But we'll give you all of that more Tuesday throughout the week and more, and make sure that you tune in wherever you listen to podcasts with Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs. Until next time.